people.
Now, seeing that you have the hip hop and rap, really rap is about the music that's out here on the radio and gangster rap and misogyny and all that sort of. Hip hop is really the culture, good culture, so we're not so much into that. But what do you got to say about the rap culture now? And just in all with what's going on, because that is a very powerful culture that could be a guiding light.
Well,
for all races.
Actually, it is probably the most powerful asset in the strategic communications venue that we have access to. However, the unfortunate problem is that a lot of very negative aspects were introduced into our culture in the late 70s and into the 80s, into the 90s. And this is a part of the continuation of COINTELPRO. A lot of people think that the COINTELPRO ended, and they don't understand that COINTELPRO was a foundational policy. Okay, the original memo had 5 tenets. And if you look at those 5 tenets and what they really represent, and they were to be ongoing. And it was drafted, it wasn't drafted as a temporary, well, I'm going to deal with this little group right here. It was drafted as a permanent policy towards black people. Point number 1, never allow a messianic leader who can rise up and galvanize the people. So that was directed against our unity. And you wonder today, well, black folks have no unity. Well, that was because a systematic plan to eradicate and eliminate the potential for unity was put into effect in the 1970s, and they've never backed off of that. Point number 5 is very key, and this really focuses on the question that you asked, because point number 5 was to ensure that there would not be a continuity between the nationalists of the 60s era and the 70s era to the future generations, that they cut that off so that the following generations would have no direct continuum, no direct flow of energy from the nationalism that was spawned by our predecessors, our forebearers out of that 60s. Malcolm, Robert Williams, and the other men the Deacons for Self-Defense, and the men who actually took a stand and presented an example. So they wanted to make sure that new generations, first of all, would not recognize as an example to emulate. And a lot of that was accomplished through the mothers, through all the various programs, welfare, food stamps, government fees, WIC, and a lot of other things that were intended to elevate women's dependence upon the government and diminish the cohesion of the family. That was essential. And then by doing that, we revert back to the Willie Lynch. The mothers, well, you've got to raise that boy so that he doesn't grow up to be a man. And then, of course, they start, then comes the trickery. Pied Piper comes along with trick. I got the candy right here. And the candy was all the gobbledygook that came along with the so-called cocaine dealer culture. And all that they couldn't suck into that was sucked into the gang trap. If you study the history of the organization of gangs in the inner city going back as far as the 50s, much of this was stimulated by the police apparatus or the so-called law enforcement infrastructure itself. There was a follow-on COINTELPRO memo a lot of people are not aware of. The second memo, and of course, is very important because the second memo was an implementation. The first memo by Hoover was actually a policy memo, and then the follow-on memo was an implementation memo that suggested methods, and one of those was the instigation of gangs, right? So a lot of the gang culture and a lot of the drug culture, and not only was it's not only initiated or stimulated by the police organization, but manipulated and controlled continually. I mean, look at the Rampart operation in LAPD. You got to quote. The TV show was on the last decade, called The Shield, was based on the LAPD Rampart operation, which was real. It wasn't fantasy. And the very types of things that were demonstrated on that show were actually taking place, and are still taking place. The closure of Rampart didn't bring it to an end. When you have policy is controlled from the top. When you say the top, the pyramidal structure, we mean the top, the tip top. And it hasn't changed. And the way things are, shit goes downhill. So bottom line is that if the top says it's this way, that's how it is. And anybody who's lower down the rung who tries to buck that, they get stepped on and crushed. So you can't be in the system and not be a supporting part of the system. So this is all, and how that relates is because you have the Hollywood and the music world are key instruments in addressing culture, and this is a cultural issue. To break the link between the generations, and to ensure that future generations, meaning younger people, would no longer have any consciousness or concern for national unity, national well-being, or even have an understanding of the meaning of nationalism, period, right? It's a cultural issue, not just political, right? Because everything starts with our culture, who we are, your mother and your father, right? Your father, who set the example of how to be a man, your mother should teach you how to be a human being, and if you don't have both of those, something's missing, okay? So, bottom line, you gotta break that up. So once you break that up, you've broken up the culture. Now, when we have that missing part, that empty hole, what do we put in there? We put in there a whole bunch of junk. Go for yourself. It's all about you. And, get yours. Step on the next nigga. Bang. So, how do we get that message across? Well, we put up some scampy women and have them shake their booties. That gets everybody's hormones flowing, so they really can't think very in an intelligent, logical manner. And then we just start humming that message into their ear with a driving beat, something that really gets into the soul, that makes you move. It's stimulating. So now we've got you on the flow. So whatever's being said, that's your flow. Ah, man, that's my swag. Yeah. It doesn't matter what it is. Okay? Realistically, I'm saying it doesn't matter in terms of it could be anything. You will still be captivated by it. It will still have the same hypnotic effect. You will still be subject to subliminal suggestions, period. But see, you have other people who are controlling the message. Something very interesting that Brother Amos Wilson, who's unfortunately dead now, noted, a New African psychologist, pointed out in his book, Afrocentrism in the New World Order, that how they, when Ice-T did a rap song about killing the police, they immediately the whole of the entertainment world shut him down. Bang! But you have all these guys that came out and they did a whole slew of rap songs like I bust my Glock, I kill a nigga, I lay niggas down, I add niggas down, I bleed, and all that was promoted. It was promoted, it was like over and over again, you guys rose to the top. And the other thing is that once they rise to the top, they're invited inside. They're invited into the little society. Oh, well, you've achieved legitimacy. You're no longer out there on the streets. You can come and you can hobnob with the stars. We're all icons. We're like demigods. The people worship us, and you can be here amongst us, and they will worship you too. So the invitation is there, and these kids have no moral foundation because they have because the family has been destroyed. So clearly, that void that has been filled, where there was supposed to be the fullness of the complete family and the complete social structure, has been ripped apart. You got all the empty holes. The empty holes have been filled with a lot of very negative attributes and attitudes. Selfishness, greed, avarice, contempt, hatred. What you looking at? And the whole 9 yards. Negative attitude. Walking around poked out. It's now become popular to take photographs, videos, everything else with a hostile look, and that hostile look, okay, is supposed to be representative of that, I guess you're somebody. This is how people have been brainwashed to want to portray themselves. And, the idea of humanity and love and everything else, there's a lot of lip service, we talk that, but that's not what we're doing. We don't even have an understanding of it, of people. And this is what has become what the music industry, the part that it has played in the disruption of our people as a culture and as a nation, and disrupted our move towards what Malcolm called self-determination and independence. So it's a major part of the overall theme, and this theme is not something that just relied on police repression, kicking in doors and SWAT teams and everything, and cutting people up and shooting dogs on. This covers the entire spectrum of human existence. So it's a part of how you dress. It's a part of how you interact with in all these various social interactions. Your buddies, you play ball with. The women that you attempt to date, or with respect to the women and men that they attempt to attract, with respect to how approaching education is addressed, and how approaching employment and funding one's lifestyle is addressed, and everything else. So they put things in a category. And then, a lot of things that come out as so-called black culture, right? And we go, oh, this is black culture. It's not even something that we can take credit for. It was something that was given to us. And we were told, oh, this is black. And we accepted it. Okay? But people say, oh, everybody knows that chitlins and watermelon and soul music is black culture. Well, you can't say that it's anything that has anything to do with our ethnicity. Okay, and you want to say, well, people are different. You go to Africa, the continent of Africa, culture is different than you go to the continent of Asia, the culture is there, or South America, the culture is there, or Europe, the culture is there. Okay, America is a hodgepodge, conglomerate. If you want to look at the original culture in America, you look at the Native American culture. So all these cultures, all these original natural cultures are different. Okay, there's nothing intrinsically cultural about chitlins, watermelon, or soul music. Okay, you say, well, okay, these are all products of slavery. Chitlins because hey, that was the only part of the hog that the master would throw away, and then you have some meat. Watermelon just happened to be a fruit that was abundant in the areas where slaves were held. Okay, so it was a good dietary supplement. People became accustomed to it, and because it was abundant, it was something that was free, as opposed to everything else that was going on in the life of the slave. It was looked upon very positively. Okay, so kids come up, they grow up, they come up eating it, and everyone around them is making a big deal out of it. So hey, everybody says it's good, so it must be good. So this is the attitude that is fostered, and it becomes our culture, but it's not something innately that was a part of it. Just like the soul music, music certainly we're original people, but the music, the woeful music came from something to keep yourself going in the field while you're slaving. And and so you can't really say that this has a lot to do, even though the tunes and the rhythms did come from our original culture. Okay, how they were embedded to our new culture and embodied in our lifestyle today. Okay, is a direct result of enslavement. So we have to look at the fact that we haven't, it was those guys in Hollywood who came up with, those TV shows, Good Times and The Jeffersons and all these other things that, through television told us how black people were supposed to operate, or how black people were supposed to see themselves, and how black people were supposed to function. That's not us writing those scripts. It's not us saying what's black. Okay? I mean, I studied acting in college, and I mean, you know, it's like, you know, I played King Lear, music, you know, and John Proctor and Crucible, and a lot of other characters. These plays were written for white people. No one asked me to talk like, yo, what up, and anything like that when I was portraying these characters. Okay. So the thing about it is, they decided to write, like the black exploitation movie. They decided to write a script, right, for black people, and it wasn't black people writing the script. You know, it was white people. When you get into what kind of white people were writing the script, you know, with an intent, with a design, with an objective, with an agenda. Well, we're going to tell the Negroes who they are, what they are, and how they should act. And we just accepted it. Again, on the same premise that we've accepted this guy in the White House. We're just so happy to see a black face, someplace that black faces have not traditionally been, that we don't even stop to examine, okay, what that black face really represents and what it's doing. Okay, we just embrace it and accept it. And so they very stubbornly and sneakily been able to use these tools, these anti-cultural tools, to wage this assault and bring about, you know, the objectives of their agenda, okay, which has been, you know, really, you know, not in our interest at all.
The only thing that I regret in all of this is that two black groups have to fight and kill each other off.